You can all be seated. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is David Dennis. I'm a member of the Board of Directors at the USS Massachusetts Memorial. I welcome you here on another 9/11 Memorial Ceremony here in Fall River. A few housekeeping items. If you have cell phones, which I'm going to do right now, turn mine off, or any other electronic devices, we would appreciate it if you would turn all those off, as there's some solemnity to the program. I'm now going to ask the fire department to please post the colors to mark the beginning of the ceremony. Okay, we will assume that the colors are posted. I'm going to explain the striking of the 4-5s. It is a long time tradition of the fire department. I will explain to you very briefly what the striking of the 4-5 bells means. Striking of the 4-5s. The fire service is rich with ceremony, customs, and tradition. Our custom of rendering final honors has its origins in the fire department of New York City, where many years ago, long before the advent of radio, pagers, and cell phones, fire alarms and daily announcements were dispatched from the central headquarters to outlying firehouses by a system of bell and telegraph commands. Each different type of alarm or announcement would have its own number and series of bell strikes. When a firefighter died in the line of duty, or when some important official or personage died, headquarters would transmit 5 bell strikes, repeated in 4 series with a slight pause between each series of 5, followed by the announcement. This was done as long ago as 1865 in the New York Fire Department, to inform the rank and file of the death of Abraham Lincoln. The custom has continued down to present day, and this form of rendering final honors to the departed comrades is known in the fire service as striking the 4-5s. Fire department. Please stay standing for the National Anthem. I'm now going to ask Lieutenant Victor Farias begin to raise the flag. It's my pleasure now to introduce Father Racine for invocation. Father.
Do this every time. We gather on this beautiful morning, just as it was 19 years ago. That beautiful morning that turned tragic and deadly and painful in such a short time. It was and still is a day of pain, sorrow, and words that we echo so often, we never forget. But this year it seems more serene, as our communities, our nation, and our world still face the challenges of a pandemic and recuperate from the loss of employment, isolation from loved ones, the grief of losing loved ones. And in these times of unrest in society, we never forget. We remember the heroes of that day, the firefighters and first responders who demonstrated without fear or tremble the act of courage during crisis. We remember the many innocents who perished, friends and neighbors, and the thousands whose names are being read today. We remember Father Michael Judge, the chaplain of the New York Fire Department. 19 years later, we gather to remember, and to comfort, and to reflect, and to be a people of hope. During this day and the days that follow, we continue to pray for peace, to be the beacons of light, just as those rays of light will once again shine tonight over New York City. Strengthen the hands of those who defend our country and our common values of freedom, justice, and peace. Inspire our leaders of cities and our nation to act wisely, to always pursue and to enact that peace by word and example. Bestow upon all today and every day your blessing, that we may live to be swords that will be converted into plowshares, and nations not learn war anymore. Continue to bless our firefighters and EMTs and police, armed forces, and our country, and grant us your safety each day. Amen.
Thank you, Father. You may be seated. I'd like to acknowledge some of the public officials and other VIPs that we have here today. On behalf of Senator Michael Rodrigues, his aide is here, Caitlin Rowley. Thank you, Caitlin. Representative Alan Sylvia. Representative Carol Fiola, Mayor Paul Coogan, Sheriff Thomas Hodgson, City Councilor Linda Pereira, Colonel David Gavigan of the Homeland Security, Chief John Mitchell, Fall River Fire Department, Chief Jeffrey Cardoza of the Fall River Police Department, and Carl Swaco, Director of EMS in Swansea. Is there anybody that I omitted? Are there any other public officials here? So good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and honored guests, and especially all our first responders. Now, most of you will remember that on this day, and where we were this day 19 years ago, what we were doing and who we were doing with. I know I was at a breakfast meeting with a friend. We also recall that it was a beautiful morning, almost like today, only we didn't have any clouds in the sky. In fact, the sky was clear, the air was crisp, and summer was fading and fall was just around the corner. But no one could ever have predicted that the world would change forever that fateful day. Least of all, the New Yorkers who were heading into Lower Manhattan to what they thought was going to be a regular routine workday. But it was anything but, because at 8:46 a.m., hijackers crashed American Airlines Flight 11 into the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City. Less than 6 minutes later, the first contingent of New York firefighters, 2 ladders, 2 engine companies, arrived at the stricken building. And minutes later, United Airlines Flight 175 struck the South Tower at 9:03 a.m., while United Airlines Flight 93 slammed into the ground in Somerset County, Pennsylvania, killing all 44 souls aboard. At that moment, the 9/11 attack was not only became the single deadliest attack in human history, it was also the deadliest incident ever for firefighters, as well as for law enforcement in the United States. Estimates of 25 to 50,000 civilians were in the Twin Trade Towers, and the and the New York Fire Department was charged with rescuing. The statistics are staggering. 9:59, the South Tower collapsed in 10 seconds. At 10:28, the North Tower collapsed. 23 New York City police officers perished. 37 Port Authority officers lost their lives. The Fire Department of New York City lost a historic 343 members on that single day, and countless other injuries were sustained, and still many of those firefighters suffer with the aftermath of those injuries. In fact, I'll tell you a quick little story. My mother-in-law, who lives in Narragansett, there's a new neighbor next door. The new neighbor is a retired New York Fire Department firefighter. He has had 2 transplants, 2 double lung transplants and 2 double kidney transplants, all related to the 9/11 tragedy. So it isn't some remote incident that happened many years ago to other people. It's very real today as it was back then. 3,030 people were killed at the World Trade Center. Of the 17,400 that were in both those towers, miraculously, and to the credit of the first responders, of that 17,400 people, 87% were safely evacuated by these brave men and women. 87%. And this does not even count for the countless acts of the bravery by the many civilians that helped in the rescue. Now, the terrorists that perpetrated the attack thought that they had struck a blow to America, to our democracy, and to our way of life. But what they had really done was awaken the great strength resolve, and resilience of the American people. Today, as we pause and reflect on the events of that day, we still carry a collective sadness in our hearts for the many souls that perished and the families that lost loved ones, and we honor those that gave their lives for their fellow Americans. As American brothers and sisters, we answered the ultimate call that day of duty and honor and courage. And finally, we stand here today and every day, a resolute nation, determined and unwavering in our commitment to protecting the rights, the freedoms, and the liberties of our great nation. Thank you. It's my great pleasure now to introduce the Honorable Paul Coogan, Mayor of the City of Fall River. Mayor Coogan.
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here with you marking this very important date of 9/11. 19 years ago, our country faced the biggest tragedy in our recent history. In ours, almost 3,000 lives were gone before our very eyes. And with them, thousands of families were changed in an instant. Even in Massachusetts, we felt the impact of those planes. It was a time of mourning, uncertainty, and fear. However, it was also a time of unity and pride. Our country rose to the challenge when 9/11 happened. Thousands of first responders and even average citizens rose to the occasion the instant those first planes hit, putting themselves all at risk to help others. Although this date goes down in history books as nothing short of a tragedy, the actions of our first responders and everyday citizens are, to this day, a powerful reminder of how selfless and strong our country truly is. And now, in the middle of a very different national crisis due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we remember that devastating day along with the strength and the unity that we all felt following 9/11. Let this day be a reminder to all of us to look out for our neighbors, to remain selfless, and to be brave. This day especially, should be a reminder to this country that has overcome unimaginable things before. We will continue to persevere through whatever challenges lie ahead. Thank you all very, very much.
It's now my pleasure to introduce Fire Chief John Lynch, Fall River Fire Department. Mayor, Chief.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of every firefighter in the country, I'd like to thank you all for your presence here today. I want to thank you for attending the 19th 9/11 ceremony. It seems like yesterday the tragedy just happened. It's hard to believe that 19 years have passed. For those of you who have visited the 9/11 Museum and Shrine, you are aware of the emotions that are stirred by the sheer power of that museum. Almost from the outset, as you descend downward into the depths, you are affected by the solemn sacredness of the hallowed grounds, consecrated by those heroes who perished there. One of the first things you see is a quotation from the Roman poet Virgil, emblazoned on the wall. "No day shall erase you from the memory of time. Your presence today, here, is testimony. Testimony that tragic day will never be forgotten. That the heroic actions of the police, paramedics, and firefighters will not be erased from the memory of time. These are uncertain times we live in. An era of pandemic, new social rules, edicts of behavior. It is an era of civil unrest where normal patterns of behavior are no longer followed, and society has been filled with uncertainty and anxiety as we all try to cope with the new normal. But some of the old normal remains, and one is the obligation to honor the memories of those heroes who sacrificed because of the deceit of evil men. The old normal remains of being vigilant against the rise of dark-souled beings. The old normal of pride in the freedoms that this country represents. Freedoms paid for with the blood of heroes. That will always remain. As we all adjust to this era of the new normal, we all agree that our world is in upheaval, changed dramatically from what it was just months ago. We all complain that it will never be the same again. That tragic day, 19 years ago, changed the world in the span of hours. The towers collapsed, and with them, our sense of security, faith, and safety. Thousands of civilian and public safety lives were lost that day. They were never given the chance to experience the new normal. That dark day changed our world forever. But from the rubble arose a newer, braver, more vigilant nation. A nation committed to the freedoms that are the pillars of this strong nation. Just as we rose from the ashes of that tragic day, we shall rise out of these uncertain days of the new normal. We are a nation of strong will, a nation that not only survives, but flourishes. But we must never forget the past. We can't let the new normal shroud the lessons of the past. Our heroes of 9/11 will always be remembered, just as long as we keep their memory alive. As Virgil said, no day shall erase you from the memory of time. Before I leave, I have one last plea. That before you leave today, you say a prayer for all that perished that day. And say a special prayer for Neely Ann Heffernan Casey, a young mother from Massachusetts who was a passenger on the first plane to strike the towers. For the last 3 years, I have brought up the name of Neely Ann Heffernan Casey. There's a point of land between Woods Hole and Falmouth that juts into the Nantucket Sound, topped by the Knobskull Lighthouse. This lovely spot has come to be named Neely's Point, the point where her husband proposed to her, where her wedding pictures were shot, where there is a park bench and a stone in her memory overlooking the Sound. A place so beautiful and serene, which is in total contrast to the tragic, violent ending of her wonderful life on September 11th, 2001. It was that stone that drew me to discover the life of Neely, a life I will always have a special connection to, a life no day shall erase from the memory of time. I ask that you say a special prayer today for Neely and her family. Her name is emblazoned on that plaque over there. And like I have done for the last 3 years, I've laid a rose by her name. I hope someday that you all make it to Neely Point and sit on that bench and look at that stone and say a prayer. Say a prayer for her and for all the people who lost their lives on that dark day. God bless all in this country. Be safe. Be vigilant. Love and cherish and protect the great freedoms of our great country. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Lynch. Next up is Fall River Police Chief Jeffrey Cardoza. Chief.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to come up here and recognize the hundreds of firefighters and dozens of police officers that lost their lives on that day 19 years ago. If you will allow me, I'd like to tell you a very brief story. Several years ago, I had the opportunity to be present in the audience when a high-ranking New York City firefighter who was there that day told his story. And what he told me was extremely moving, and it stays with me till today. He talked about how he was in the atrium in one of the towers, manning a command post, and as he was standing there trying to figure out the next thing to do, because it was complete chaos, and he had tears in his eyes, mind you, while he was telling this story, that fellow firefighters and police officers that he knew like brothers were streaming into the tower, and they approached him, and they looked at each other as they were coming in, and they commented to each other that they weren't sure if they were going to make it down, that this could be the last time they see each other, and they wanted to say goodbye. So as he told this story about hugging and saying goodbye, that he may never see his brothers and sisters again, of course the audience was extremely moved by this, and as well as myself, and it just shows you the determination, the sacrifice, and the bravery of those firefighters and police officers that donned that gear and climbed those stairs, knowing, mind you, that they may not come down. What's even more extraordinary as I stand here today is that the police and fire all over this country would not hesitate, God forbid, if that call came again. The firefighters would don the gear, the police officers would race up those stairs to save lives. We will not hesitate. And I think the way society is today, the way our country is today, it's important for us to recognize that our police, our fire, our first responders, our correctional officers, our sheriffs will not hesitate if that call comes in. Thank you for this opportunity, and please continue to support our first responders.
Thank you, Chief Cardoza. Next, we have Bristol County Sheriff Tom Hodgson.
Good morning. I remember it like it was yesterday, that feeling of comfort, of safety, of control. I remember getting through the airport security in 3 minutes. Remember when kids were allowed to check out the cockpit of a plane in the middle of a flight? I remember being at a counterterrorism conference outside of Washington, D.C. in 1998 and thinking, well, this is nice training, but we're not going to really see this in our region. September 11 changed everything. The horrible events that claimed so many lives and altered so many more ushered in a new normal. Safety and security took a larger place in the national echelon. Screening to enter an airport or public building was increased. Law enforcement agencies, no matter how big or small, shared information and intelligence with one another. And as much as I'll never forget what the world was like before 9/11, I'll never forget the unity and compassion in the aftermath. I led a team of volunteers from the Bristol County Sheriff's Office and some local police departments to Ground Zero in the days after. And just as the smell of burning flesh or the sight of bones and twisted steel is imprinted in my memory, so is the cheers and gratitude of New Yorkers lining the streets to thank us for coming to their aid. Former Mayor Rudy Giuliani said it best years ago. Commenting about the attacks, he said, "We saw the absolute worst of humanity, but in the aftermath, we saw the absolute best." It's a good lesson to remember right now as I look out at a much smaller crowd that is usually gathered here at Battleship Cove on 9/11. The COVID pandemic has taken quite a toll on our neighborhoods. Lives have been lost, businesses shattered. So many have sacrificed so much in this public health crisis. My challenge to everyone out there is to treat the aftermath of COVID like we treated September 12th in 2001. Let's use this crisis and make something positive out of it. Perform an act of kindness for your neighbor. Pay better attention to your health and well-being. Look out for others. Be cautious and kind. Thank a police officer, firefighter, nurse, or paramedic. Hold the door for a person after you. Our nation is full of great people who do great things every day. Some big, some small. Let's seize the latest challenge thrown at us, overcome it, and grow from it to be a stronger and a kinder nation. Finally, I urge everyone today to say a silent prayer in their hearts for all the people who lost their lives on 9/11 and in the years after, from the passengers on the jets to the workers in the towers to the first responders who rushed to the scene. May they rest in peace, and may their memory live on in all of us forever. May God bless you all, and may God bless the United States of America.
We have a minor change of plans. Cantor Wahlberg is unable to be here this morning, so we're going to move up the benediction. Actually, Father will it'll be a very short prayer instead of the benediction, then we'll continue on with the rest of the program. So, Father.
I will pray the firefighter's prayer. When I am called to duty, God, wherever flames may rage, may give me the strength to save some life, whatever be its age. Help me to embrace the little child before it is too late, or save an older person from the horror of that fate. Enable me to be alert and hear the weakest shout, and quickly and efficiently to put the fire out. I want to fill my calling and to give the best in me, to guard my every neighbor and protect his property. And if according to my fate I am to lose my life, please bless with your protecting hands the ones I leave behind. Just a little short note, I used this prayer from my predecessor's prayer card, Monsignor Thomas Harrington, who I admired very much as priest and brother priest and fire chaplain, and we pray for his soul as well. Amen.
Thank you, Father. We'll continue with the rest of the program. Up next is Carl Swaco, no stranger to Battleship Cove, a good friend of Battleship Cove for many years, and now Director of EMS Services in Swansea. Carl?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chris. Everything's changed, hasn't it? And if you listen to our speakers this morning, every one of them, very eloquently stating why we're here today. Most of you who'll see this ceremony aren't physically present, but thanks to our local media, who so often go unrecognized, they're first responders too, so that we can have the knowledge of what is happening in our communities. So thank you to all the people in the media, those first responders that bring us the news, tell us how to be safe, so that we don't have to go somewhere to look at something and be somewhere where we shouldn't be. In all the speeches you heard this morning, we talked about numbers, we talked about prayers, we talked about faith. But there's one thing that today is all about. Yes, it's about 9/11. And yes, it's about our country. And yes, it's about the tragedy. And yes, it's about resilience. But today is about you. Each and every one of you here today. First of all, our first responders, they're all here. The men and women of the fire department, the police department, EMS, which I represent as president of the town of Swansea, along with emergency management. Those emergency management officials, all volunteers that are there to help our first responders. But you know what? Battleship Cove represents a lot more than that. And in my 20-year tenure at Battleship Cove, serving many years as her president and now so honored to be the president emeritus of this organization, this place, this very special place where we are this morning, talks about the best of our country, talks about what it means to be an American, what it means to endure the things that we've had to endure. Battleship Cove is the place of solace, the place of gratitude, the place of remembrance, and the place where each and every one of you belong. On behalf of President Justin Bond, who took my place and who couldn't be here today, you want to know why? Because of COVID-19. For those of you that don't know, Justin Bond is the chief engineer of the Steamship Authority, beside the responsibility of being president here at Battleship Cove. No small task is that as well. And he had to be called into work at 6 o'clock this morning, because those of you who have been reading about the Steamship Authority know that they have had some COVID-19 infections. And so, being short-staffed, he had to go to work when his heart and his soul really wanted to be here to greet and thank each and every one of you. But that talks to what today is. Battleship Cove represents our nation's resilience in time of war, and those soldiers, those men and women that gave their lives to ensure our freedom. But we're in a whole different war right now. This 21st century, think about it. 2001 brought in 9/11, but it brought in much more than 9/11. It brought in a new normal. It brought in so many things that many of us don't remember because it was 19 years ago. But we certainly remember what happened this year. Not only was it a year of a pandemic that struck early in the year, but we've had no less than 3 heat waves right here in the city of Fall River and surrounding communities. Political unrest. Lives are not the same. Not only are lives the same, but even the weather isn't the same. What are we up to now? Paulette? 15, 16 tropical storms and hurricanes. You go to bed at night and you say, this can't be real. Sometimes we just want to shut off the television because our minds are ready to explode. But you know what? We're Americans. We're resilient. We're the leaders of the world because of how we are and who we are. Each and every one of you this year is a soldier. I spoke at a virtual ceremony at Memorial Day for the town of Swansea. And we talked about soldiers and how we remember them as we're remembering the people of 9/11. But each and every one of you are a soldier because you're experiencing this pandemic. You say, well, I'm not really a soldier. You know, soldiers have weapons, and we have weapons. We certainly do. Here's one of them: hand sanitizer, gloves, antibacterial soap, Lysol spray, all the things we all run to Walmart for every week and never find. That's a soldier. You're a soldier. You're a representative of our country. And I'm so grateful to each and every one of you for being here today and for doing what you do. You think that maybe you don't matter, that maybe you can't contribute enough, but I dare to say differently. Life is so important because we need each and every one of you, as Chief Lynch called it, our new normal. How long will this last? We don't know, but I can tell you one thing: as long as it lasts, we'll endure, won't we? And we'll do it together. And Battleship Cove too has been affected by this pandemic. Just imagine, most of our revenue, we relied on scouting. Look what's happened to that. We relied on visitations. We couldn't have any of that. Most of our staff had to be furloughed for a period of time because there was absolutely no money available to compensate them for what they do. Bear in mind, this staff at Battleship Cove works for the kind of money that anyone could get working in a place like McDonald's or Burger King. And you say, well, why don't they do that instead of doing this? How do you take care of all these ships that are in the water, everything we have here? I can tell you from my 20 years here at Battleship Cove, these folks are the best of the best. This is not a job for them at Battleship Cove. This is their career and their vocation. They want to make sure that each and every one of you have the ability to come here and reflect and remember. Our state's appointed 9/11 memorial is right here. I found that when we honored Mayor Carrere, state senator many years back, representative. Battleship Cove is the designated place for the state's 9/11 memorial. So this is a very special place, especially today. And Battleship Cove needs your help. For it to come out of this COVID-19 pandemic, it needs volunteers. And each and every one of you in the audience today, and those of you that are watching on television, can help this organization. How? Well, if you have a little extra money lying around, that wouldn't be a terrible thing. But more than that, we need you. You can help us in our ship store. You can help us paint. You can help us greet people. You can help us do something. That's not going to cost you anything but your time. And I will tell you, in the 20 years that I've been here, plus at Battleship Cove, that every time I walk up that gangway, there's this feeling that comes over me. A chill runs up my spine because you think of the magnitude of what this place represents. This place represents America. This place represents winning the war, fighting the battle, doing what's right, and that's why we're here today. Colonel Gavigan, our honored guest speaker, is going to tie the ribbons on all of this by talking about what it means to be an American and how 9/11 affected our country. But I wanted to talk about you. I wanted to tell you how important you are to your community, Fall River and the greater Fall River area, and what you do, every little thing that you do to make life a little better during this time that just doesn't seem normal. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank those who make this possible, especially to the Battleship Cove Board of Directors, who without them this organization would not be able to continue. To Justin Bond, our new president, to Chris Nardi, who's our chief operating officer. These people have given years and years of their life. Both of those individuals I just mentioned have been here since they were children, volunteering at Battleship Cove. And to the staff at Battleship Cove that does so very much. Please give them a round of applause. And to all of you, thank you ever so much for everything that you do for your community. Thank you for remembering 9/11. Thank you for being and helping Battleship Cove. May God bless each and every one of you, every day of your life going forward. Be kind, be good, do something good for others, and may God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Up next is David Gavian, our keynote speaker. Colonel.
I see Chief Cardoza is still here. I don't know if you're aware or not. Police chiefs all over the country are resigning their position because of what's going on. Florida Police Department, Florida Fire Department will need your help. And that includes making sure that they have the tools to fight the war we're in now. In 1941, 75 years ago, America was under attack at Pearl Harbor. 19 years ago today, we suffered a devastating attack on our homeland when the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and a plane was hijacked and crashed into the ground in Pennsylvania. America is resilient. We recovered from both of these attacks, and the nation is getting stronger. 19 years. How come we haven't had another attack? Let me run down some of the things for you. Let's talk about people. On December 7, 1941, 2,400 were killed at Pearl Harbor. In 1983, 241 military personnel, the majority Marines, were killed when a terrorist drove a massive truck bomb into their barracks at the Beirut airport. In December of 1988, Pan Am 103 exploded over Lockerbie, Scotland, taking the lives of all 243 people aboard. In February of 1993, terrorists attempted to take down the World Trade Center, killing 6 and injuring over 1,000. I visited the site after that bombing. It was horrendous, but they came back. In 1995, a domestic terrorist blew up the Murrah building in Oklahoma City, killing 168 people. 19 years ago today, the World Trade Center and the Pentagon were hit by those planes, and the plane in Pennsylvania. 2,977 people and over 6,000 injured. 92 pieces of fire apparatus were destroyed. Fire apparatus can be replaced, people cannot. So we have to make sure that we give the public safety people all of the tools they need to survive these battles. And I just want to bring out a point. The fire department on a daily basis responds to very, very gaseous situations. These are situations that can take their lives, and many firefighters die from cancer. A police officer at night gets a call, shots fired. He goes out, it's a dark alley or a dark house. He's entering there not knowing if he's going to come out alive. We have to support our public safety officials. So what have we done to prevent another strike in our homeland? First responders are receiving better training through the Mass Criminal Justice Training Council. That council, the chiefs are on it. They make sure they get the latest training. The Massachusetts State Police have established a fusion center to screen intelligence. That intelligence is provided by local police departments and then shared with all of law enforcement partners. And our federal law enforcement partners are providing oversight of organizations and individuals who do harm to our country. I don't know if there's any Gold Star family members here today, but those are the people that we must remember, the Gold Star families. I'd like to mention a recent death. A good friend of mine, Tom Hudner. Tom Hudner was a Medal of Honor winner, crashed his plane in Korea, a Forever native, a wonderful guy. Leo Larry, who trained me when I first entered the military. I was sworn in at the Bank Street Armory, just up the street. Richard Riley, who passed away, Deputy Assistant to President Reagan. We played basketball together at St. Joseph's. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to Sheriff Tom Hodgson for his honest desire to create the safest environment for the citizens of Bristol County. Thank you, Sheriff. Now I want to tell a little story out of school here. A little more than 2 years ago, I had a massive heart attack in New Bedford. New Bedford EMS rushed me down to Fall River to the South Coast. They saved my life. But here's what happened. They were unable to contact my family. I woke up in that bed, and who was standing right next to the bed? The sheriff. Now, how many of you can say your boss is going to show up when you're on your deathbed? Thank you, Sheriff. I'd like to God bless the city of Fall River, Bristol County, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and the United States of America. Thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Thank you, Colonel. Thank you, Colonel. I'd now like to ask Chief Lynch and Deputy Chief Aguiar to lay the wreath, please. I'm going to ask everyone to please remain standing for the playing of taps, and I'd like you to direct your attention to the waterfront for the Fall River Fire Department fire boat. Before we conclude, we have one tradition here at Battleship Cove, and that is the releasing of the doves. That's done by Bill and Paula Damaris. I'm just going to read very quickly a little statement about what the doves represent. In remembrance of our brothers and sisters lost on 9/11, we will now release white doves of peace. As the white doves fly to the heavens above, we ask everyone present to send up upon their wings your own personal message or special prayer. The white doves will be escorted home by a squad of combat homing pigeons of multiple colors, representing that no matter what our color, creed, or origin, we are all Americans. We're going to release 3 doves today. Normally we release an awful lot of them. We ask people to come up. They're going to release, I believe, 3 doves. So I think we're going to have 3 volunteers. Oh, we already have 3 volunteers. So we have 3 volunteers, and the remainder of them are going to be released in the back. Is that right, Bill? Okay. All around. Bill? Representing the 3 doves will represent the Holy Trinity, Bill tells me. Thank you, Billy. Bagpiper? Thank you. Before I ask the Honor Guard to retire the colors, I just, on behalf of the USS Memorial Committee here in Battleship Cove, I want to thank the public, all our dignitaries, and especially our first responders. We know that today is a solemn day, it's a day of Thanksgiving, and of course it is a day of remembrance and appreciation. Thank you for coming. God bless you, and God bless the United States. The bagpiper, that concludes our ceremony.
Three.